Listen to this. On a Thursday afternoon in March, a storage facility held an auction. Standard procedure. 3 units up for bid, all delinquent on payment for over a year. Local buyers showed up, the kind who flip furniture or resell tools online. The auctioneer opened the roll-up door on Unit 73, and everyone leaned in to see what they were bidding on. What they saw was ordinary. Stacked boxes, a folding chair, a lamp with no shade, a duffel bag shoved into the corner. What they did not see, not until later, was the cardboard box on the bottom of the stack. The one with no label. The one that should not have been there. That box is why I am here now. My name does not matter. What matters is what happens when a cold case gets air again, after being buried for 6 years. What matters is how fast people who thought they were safe start sweating when you ask the wrong questions in the right order. The facility is called Secure Lock Storage. It sits on the edge of town, next to a freight railway and a shuttered grain mill. The kind of place you drive past and never notice unless you need it. Cheap rates. No cameras inside the rows. Gate code stays the same for months. The buyer who won Unit 73 paid $200. His name is Derek Pryor. He runs an estate sale business out of his garage. He has done this 50 times. He knows how to spot value fast. He loaded the boxes into his truck, drove home, and started sorting. The unmarked box was heavier than it looked. Inside were files, not personal files, not tax records or old bills. These were incident reports, witness statements, evidence logs, photocopies, some of them, but some originals with department stamps and case numbers written in blue pen. Derek Pryor called the non-emergency line. He did not know what he had, but he knew it was not his. The deputy who showed up was young. She flipped through the first few pages, stopped, and made a call. 15 minutes later, a detective arrived. He did not say much. He took the box. He told Derek this would be handled quietly. He told him not to talk about it. Derek Pryor did not talk about it, but someone at the department did. And that is how I got the tip. I work cold cases, freelance. I pitch to podcasts, streaming docs, print outlets. I go where the story is still alive under the surface. I got a message from someone who would not give me their name. They said, look into the storage unit auction. They said, ask about Unit 73. They said, ask about the box. So, I did. The case in those files had a name. Olivia Hendricks. 29 years old. Reported missing 6 years ago. Last seen leaving a downtown bar just after midnight on a Saturday. Her car was found 2 days later in the parking lot of a hiking trailhead 30 miles north. Keys in the ignition, purse on the passenger seat, phone dead. No body, no witnesses, no resolution. The case went cold within 8 months. The file was closed, but not solved. Olivia Hendricks became a name on a list, a page in a binder, a case number that got referenced in training sessions about investigative dead ends. And now, her file was in a storage unit that nobody admitted renting. I started with the facility. I wanted the rental agreement for Unit 73. I wanted to know who signed it, who paid for it, how long it had been active. The manager, was a man named Gil, late 50s. He wore reading glasses on a chain and kept a space heater running under his desk, even though it was not that cold. He was polite. He pulled the file. He showed me the lease. The name on the lease was Paul Everett. I wrote it down. I asked if Gil remembered him. He said no. He said they get a lot of renters. He said most people pay online now and never come into the office. I asked when the lease started. He checked. 6 years ago. April. 1 month after Olivia Hendricks was reported missing. I asked when the payments stopped. 13 months ago. I asked if Paul Everett ever came back after the unit was auctioned. Gil said no. I asked if anyone else ever accessed the unit. He said he would not know. There are no locks. People use their own locks. The gate code gets them in. What they do after that is their business. I thanked him. I took a photo of the lease with my phone. I walked the rows. I found Unit 73. The lock was gone. The door was pulled halfway down. I stepped inside. It smelled like dust and old cardboard. There were marks on the floor where the boxes had been stacked. There were scraps of packing tape stuck to the concrete. There was nothing else. I crouched down. I ran my hand along the floor. I felt the grit under my palm. I tried to picture someone standing here, stacking those boxes, sealing that door, walking away and never coming back. I wanted to know why. I ran the name. Paul Everett. There were 3 in the state. One was 70 years old and lived in a nursing home. One was a teenager. The third was 34, living 2 towns over, working as a line cook at a chain restaurant. I drove out to see him. The restaurant was attached to a highway interchange, flat roof, neon sign, parking lot half full. I waited until his shift ended. I watched him walk out the side door, still wearing his work shirt, earbuds in, keys spinning on one finger. I approached him in the parking lot. I said his name. He stopped. He pulled one earbud out. He looked at me like I was selling something. I told him I was looking into a storage unit rented under his name. I gave him the address. I asked if he knew anything about it. He stared at me. He said he had never rented a storage unit in his life. I asked if anyone could have used his name. He said, maybe. He said his wallet got stolen once, a few years back. He said he reported it. He said he got new cards. He said he did not think anything came of it. I asked when. He said he did not remember exactly. He said sometime around 6 or 7 years ago. I wrote that down. I asked if he ever got contacted about unpaid bills or collections related to storage. He said no. I asked if he knew anyone named Olivia Hendricks. He said no. I thanked him. I handed him my card. I told him to call me if he remembered anything else. He took the card. He put his earbud back in. He walked to his car and left. I sat in my car and thought about what that meant. Someone used his name. Someone used his stolen identity to rent a unit, store evidence, and then disappear. That someone knew the case. That someone had access. That someone was close. I pulled up the case files I had been given access to. Not the full file, not yet, but enough. I found the lead detective. His name was Lieutenant Kenneth Harrow. He worked the case from the beginning. He was the one who took Derek Pryor's call about the box. I called the department. I asked for him. I was told he was unavailable. I asked when he would be available. I was told to leave a message. I left my name and number. I did not say why I was calling. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was not Lieutenant Harrow. It was someone else, a woman. She said she was calling on behalf of the department. She said they appreciated my interest, but the case was under review and they could not comment at this time. She said if I had questions, I should submit them in writing. I asked who I was speaking to. She said her name was Angela. She did not give a last name. I asked if Lieutenant Harrow would be available for an on-record interview. She said no. I asked why. She said it was department policy. I thanked her. I hung up. That was the first time I felt it. That pressure. That sense that the door I was trying to open had someone leaning against it from the other side. I pulled the lease again. I looked at the signature. Paul Everett, written in neat block letters. I compared it to a sample I found online from a job application he had filled out years ago. They did not match. The signature on the lease was a forgery. I made a list. I wrote down everyone who would have had access to Paul Everett's information after his wallet was stolen. Police, bank staff, whoever processed the report, whoever handled the fraud claim. And I wrote down everyone who would have had access to Olivia Hendricks's case file. The overlap was small, but it was not zero. I went back to the beginning. I pulled everything I could find about Olivia Hendricks: social media, news articles, public records. I built a timeline. I mapped her last known movements. She worked as a paralegal. She lived alone in a duplex on the south side. She had a boyfriend, but they had broken up 2 months before she disappeared. His name was Marcus. He was cleared early, solid alibi. He was out of state visiting family the weekend she went missing. Her friends said she was doing fine. She was social. She went out most weekends. She was not reckless. She was not in trouble. She was just living her life. The night she disappeared, she went to a bar called The Crescent. It was a Thursday, but it was busy. Live music, drink specials. She went with 2 friends. They left around 11. Olivia stayed. She said she was going to finish her drink and then head home. Security footage from the bar showed her leaving at 12:17. She walked out alone. She got into her car. She drove north. Her car was found at the trailhead 2 days later. The trail was popular. Locals used it for running and hiking. But it was March. It was still cold. The lot was empty most of the time. Her phone pinged a tower near the trailhead at 12:43. Then it went dark. No one saw her after that. The search lasted 2 weeks. Volunteers combed the trails. Divers checked the creek. Dogs tracked scent to the edge of the woods and then lost it. Nothing. The case went cold because there was nothing left to follow. But now there was. Now there was a box full of files that someone hid. Someone who knew what they were doing. Someone who knew how long they could keep it buried. before the lease ran out. Someone who did not plan on a stranger buying that unit and calling the cops. I needed to know what was in those files that made them worth hiding. I needed to see the box again. I called the department. I asked to speak to Lieutenant Harrow. This time, they put me through. His voice was flat, tired. He asked what I wanted. I told him I was working on a story about the Olivia Hendricks case. I told him I knew about the storage unit. I told him I wanted to see the evidence that was recovered. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "That is an active investigation now. I cannot share details." I said, "I understood." I said I just wanted to know if the files in that box matched the official case file, or if there were discrepancies. He said, "I am not going to speculate with you." I said, "Were any of the files original documents that should have been logged into evidence?" He did not answer that. I said, "Was anything missing?" He exhaled slowly. He said, "I need to go." I said, "One more question. Who had access to that case file 6 years ago?" He said, "A lot of people." He said, "It was a missing person case. Everyone was involved." He hung up. I sat with that. A lot of people. That was the problem. That was why this was going to be hard. Because when everyone has access, anyone could be responsible. I went back to the files I had. I studied the timeline again. I marked every name, every witness, every officer, every person who touched the case in any official capacity. And then I noticed something. There was a name that appeared 3 times in the first week of the investigation. Not as a lead detective, not as a witness, as a records clerk, someone who processed reports, someone who logged evidence, someone who had access to everything that came through. The name was David Falk. I looked him up. He still worked for the department. Same position, same desk. I decided to pay him a visit. The rain is still falling when I pull into the department parking lot. The building is low and brick, surrounded by chain link and patrol cars parked in neat rows. The front entrance is lit by a single yellow lamp that flickers every few seconds. I walk in. I give my name. I say I am here to see David Falk. The officer at the desk looks at me for a long moment. Then she picks up the phone. She speaks quietly. She hangs up. She says, "He will be out in a minute." I wait. The lobby smells like floor cleaner and coffee that has been sitting too long. There is a bulletin board on the wall covered in flyers. Community meetings, safety tips, a faded poster about reporting suspicious activity. David Falk comes through a side door. He is in his 40s. Glasses, button-up shirt. He looks like someone who has worked the same job for 20 years and never thought about leaving. He asks what I need. I introduce myself. I tell him I am working on a story about the Olivia Hendricks case. I say I am trying to understand the flow of evidence in the early days of the investigation. I ask if he remembers anything unusual about how the case was processed. He frowns. He says, "That was a long time ago." I say, "I know." I say, "But you logged a lot of the early reports. I am just trying to understand if anything stood out. Anything missing, anything that seemed off." He crosses his arms. He says, I process a lot of cases. I do not remember every detail. I nod. I say, do you remember a storage unit being rented under a stolen identity? Do you remember anyone in the department talking about files being kept off-site? His expression does not change, but something in his posture does. He shifts his weight. He glances at the officer behind the desk. He says, I think you should leave. I say, I am just asking questions. He says, and I am telling you I cannot help you. He turns. He walks back through the door. It closes behind him with a soft click. The officer at the desk is watching me now. She does not say anything. I leave. Outside, the rain is heavier. I sit in my car and write down everything he did not say, everything his body said instead. He knows something. He is scared. And I am getting closer. I drive back to my motel. The rain follows me the whole way, drumming on the roof, blurring the taillights ahead into red smears. The wipers beat a rhythm that feels like a countdown. I need to map this differently. I need to stop thinking like a journalist and start thinking like whoever hid that box. Back in the room, I spread everything out on the desk. Printed timelines, notes on index cards, photos I took of the storage unit lease, the list of names from the case file. David Falk is on that list. So is Lieutenant Harrow. So are 6 other officers, 2 dispatchers, a crime scene tech, and a records supervisor who retired 3 years ago. I start with the retired supervisor. Her name is Diane Mallory. I find her address through public records. She lives in a small house on the north side of town, near the elementary school. I call first. No answer. I leave a message. I say I am researching the Hendricks case and would appreciate a few minutes of her time. She calls back an hour later. Her voice is cautious, but not unfriendly. She says she remembers the case. She says it bothered her that they never found Olivia. She says she will talk to me, but not on the phone. We meet the next morning at a diner near her house. It is the kind of place with vinyl booths and laminated menus and a waitress who calls everyone honey. Diane is waiting in a corner booth when I arrive. She is in her 60s, grey hair pulled back, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. I sit down. I thank her for meeting me. She waves it off. She says, I am glad someone is still asking questions. I order coffee. I pull out my notebook. I ask her what she remembers about the early days of the investigation. She says it was chaos at first, everyone working overtime, tips coming in constantly. But after the first month, it slowed down. The leads dried up. The case went cold. I ask if she remembers anything unusual about how the files were handled. She pauses. She stirs sugar into her coffee. She says, there was something. I did not think much of it at the time, but looking back, it was odd. I lean forward. I wait. She says there were 2 sets of reports filed in the first week, witness statements, mostly, but one set got logged into evidence and the other set went into a separate file. I asked about it. I was told it was for internal review. I assumed it was standard procedure. I ask who told her that. She says, Lieutenant Harrow. I write that down. I ask if she ever saw the second file again. She shakes her head. She says, no. and when I went looking for it a few months later, it was gone. I asked Harrow about it. He said it had been consolidated into the main file, but I never saw those reports again. I asked what the reports were about. She says, witness statements from people who were at the Crescent the night Olivia disappeared. Customers, staff. But here is the thing. The statements that made it into the official file were sanitized, short, vague. The ones I saw before they disappeared were more detailed. They had names, descriptions, timelines that did not quite line up. I ask if she remembers any specifics. She thinks for a moment. She says, there was one statement from a bartender. He said Olivia left with someone, not alone. He said he saw her talking to a man near the door, and then they walked out together. But in the official file, that detail is not there. The bartender's statement just says she left around midnight. No mention of anyone else. I feel my pulse quicken. I ask if she remembers the bartender's name. She says, I do not, but I remember thinking it was strange that the detail got dropped. I brought it up to Harrow. He said the bartender recanted. He said the guy admitted he was not sure what he saw, that it was too crowded, too dark. I ask if she believed that. She looks at me for a long time. Then she says, no, I did not. I thank her. I ask if there is anything else she remembers. Anything that felt wrong. She says, David Falk was nervous. I remember that. He kept asking me if I had made copies of anything. He kept checking the logs. I thought he was just being thorough. But now I wonder. I ask if she thinks he was involved. She says, I do not know, but I think someone was protecting someone, and I think Harrow knows who. I finish my coffee. I thank her again. I leave her my number and tell her to call if she remembers anything else. Outside, the rain has stopped, but the sky is still heavy and grey. I sit in my car and think about what she told me. 2 sets of reports. One sanitized. One disappeared. A bartender who saw Olivia leave with someone and then changed his story. David Falk, nervous and checking logs. Lieutenant Harrow, controlling the narrative. I need to find that bartender. I go back to the list of witnesses in the official file. There are 3 staff members from the Crescent listed, 2 servers and 1 bartender. The bartender's name is Jason Ridley. I look him up. He still lives in town. He works at a different bar now, a place called The Lantern on the east side. I drive over. The bar is closed, but there is a side door propped open with a cinder block. I knock. A man in his 30s comes to the door, wiping his hands on a towel. He has a shaved head and a sleeve of tattoos running down his left arm. I ask if he is Jason Ridley. He says, yeah. He asks what I want. I tell him I am looking into the Olivia Hendricks case. I say I know he gave a statement 6 years ago. I say I wanted to ask him about what he saw that night. His expression changes. He glances over his shoulder, then steps outside and pulls the door almost closed behind him. He says, I already talked to the cops. I do not have anything else to say. I say, I know you told them Olivia left alone, but I have reason to believe your original statement was different. I think you saw her leave with someone. He does not say anything. I say, if that is true, I need to know. Because right now, there is evidence that someone hid files related to this case. Someone who had access. Someone who did not want certain details getting out. He shifts his weight. He looks at the ground. He says, "You do not understand." I say, "Then help me understand." He is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "I did see her leave with someone. A guy. I did not know him. He was older. Maybe late 30s, early 40s. He was wearing a jacket. Dark. He was not drunk. He was calm. He walked up to her near the door, said something, and she nodded. They walked out together. I ask why he changed his statement. He says, "Because I got a visit. 2 days after I talked to the police. A guy came to my apartment. He did not tell me his name. He said I needed to be careful about what I remembered. He said if I kept talking about seeing someone with Olivia, it could cause problems. He said it could cause problems for me." I ask if the guy was a cop. Jason hesitates. Then he says, "I do not know. He did not show a badge. But he knew things. He knew where I lived. He knew my schedule. He knew I had a kid. He said, 'You do not want this turning into something bigger than it needs to be.'" I ask if he reported the visit. He shakes his head. He says, "No, I was scared. I have a daughter. I was not going to risk it." So I called the detective back and told him I was not sure what I saw. I said it was dark. I said I must have been confused. He did not push. He just said okay and hung up. I ask if he remembers the detective's name. He says, "Harrow." I write that down. I ask if he can describe the man he saw with Olivia. He says, "Tall, maybe 6 feet. Short hair, clean cut. He looked like someone who worked in an office. Not flashy, not memorable, just normal." I ask if he would recognize him again. He says, "Maybe. I do not know. It has been 6 years." I thank him. I give him my card. I tell him if he remembers anything else, or if anyone contacts him again, to call me immediately. He takes the card. He says, "You need to be careful. Whoever this is, they do not want this coming back up." I say, "I know." He goes back inside. The door clicks shut. I sit in my car and add this to the timeline. Olivia left with someone. The bartender was threatened into changing his story. Harrow accepted the new statement without question. Harrow is not just protecting the case. He is protecting someone. I need to know who. I go back to the files Diane mentioned, the sanitized witness statements. I need to see the original reports, the ones that disappeared. But those are gone, or they were, until they showed up in a storage unit. I call Derek Pryor. I ask if he kept any photos of the contents of the box before he handed it over. He says, no. He says he did not think to. He says the cops took everything. I ask if he remembers anything specific, any names, any case numbers. He says, not really. He says it was a lot of paper. He says there was one thing though, a photo. It was clipped to one of the reports, a surveillance photo, black and white, grainy. It showed two people standing near a car in a parking lot. One of them was a woman. The other was a man. He could not see their faces clearly, but the timestamp on the photo was the night Olivia disappeared. I ask if he remembers what time. He says, late, after midnight, maybe 12:30, 12:40. I ask if he remembers anything else about the photo. The car, the location. He says, the car was a sedan, dark color. The location looked like it might have been the trailhead parking lot. There were trees in the background, gravel. It looked rural. I ask if he is sure the photo was in the box. He says, positive. He says it stood out because it looked like evidence, real evidence, and he could not figure out why it was not in the official file. I thank him. I hang up. A surveillance photo, taken at the trailhead, around the time Olivia's phone went dark. That photo should have been central to the investigation, but it was not in the official file. It was hidden. And now it is back in police custody, and no one is talking about it. I need to see that photo, but I need leverage. I go back to Paul Everett, the stolen identity. I pull his fraud report. I find the case number. I find the officer who took the report. His name is Officer Martin Tess. He is still on the force. Patrol Division. I call the department. I ask for him. I am told he is on shift. I ask when he will be back. The dispatcher says he gets off at 6. I wait. At 6:15, I am parked outside the station. I watch officers come and go. I see Martin Tess walk out in uniform, keys in hand, heading toward a patrol car in the lot. I get out. I approach him. I say his name. He stops. He looks at me. He says, "Can I help you?" I introduce myself. I say I am looking into the theft report filed by Paul Everett 6 years ago. I say I am trying to understand how someone used his identity to rent a storage unit and whether that case was ever followed up on. He frowns. He says, "I do not remember that case." I show him the report on my phone. I say, "You took the report." March, 6 years ago. Everett reported his wallet stolen. Credit cards, ID, the whole thing. He looks at the screen. He says, "Okay, yeah." I vaguely remember. He filed the report. We ran it through the system. Nothing came of it. That is pretty standard for wallet thefts. I ask if anyone ever contacted him about fraudulent charges or accounts opened in his name. He says, "Not that I know of." I ask if the case was ever connected to the Olivia Hendricks investigation. He goes still. He says, "Why would it be?" I say, "Because someone used Everett's identity to rent a storage unit 1 month after Olivia disappeared. And that unit was used to store files related to her case." He stares at me. He says, "I do not know anything about that." I say, "Did anyone ever ask you about the Everett case? Anyone from investigations? Anyone who wanted to see the report?" He hesitates. Then he says, "Maybe." I do not remember. I say, "Try." He looks around. He lowers his voice. He says, "Look, I do not want trouble. But yeah, someone asked, a few months after I filed the report, a detective, He wanted to see the file. He said it might be connected to something he was working on. I ask who. He says, Harrow. I feel it click into place. Harrow knew. He knew about the stolen identity. He knew about the storage unit. And he buried it. I ask if Harrow ever followed up. Tess says, no. He just took the file. I never heard about it again. I thank him. I walk back to my car. Harrow is not just protecting someone. He is the one who hid the files. He is the one who rented the unit under Paul Everett's name. He had access to the stolen identity report. He had access to the case files. He had motive to make sure certain details never saw daylight. But why? What was in those files that was worth 6 years of silence? I need to confront him, but I need to be smart. If I go in without proof, he will shut me down. If I go in with too much, he will know I am close, and he will move faster than I can. I need the photo. The surveillance photo from the trailhead. That is the key. I call a contact I have in the county clerk's office. I ask if there is any way to access evidence logs without going through the department directly. She says, not really. Evidence logs are internal. But if you can get a case number and a court order, you might be able to request a review. I do not have time for a court order. I thank her. I hang up. I need another way in. I think about Diane Mallory. She said David Falk was nervous. She said he kept checking logs. If Falk was involved, he might still have access to the evidence. He might know where that photo is now. I need to talk to him again. But this time, I need to make him think I already know more than I do. I drive to the station. I wait in the parking lot until I see Falk leave. It is late, almost 8. He walks to his car, a grey sedan with a dented bumper and a parking sticker on the windshield. I follow him. He drives to a small house on the west side, single story. Chain link fence. A dog barks from somewhere in the yard as he pulls into the driveway. I park across the street. I wait until he is inside. Then I get out and walk up to the front door. I knock. He opens the door halfway. When he sees me, his face tightens. He says, "What are you doing here?" I say, "I need to talk to you about the Hendricks case. I know about the storage unit. I know Harrow rented it using Paul Everett's stolen identity. I know there was a surveillance photo that never made it into the official file. And I know you helped him bury it." He does not say anything, but his hand grips the edge of the door. I say, "I am not here to burn you. I just need to know why. What was in that photo that was worth hiding?" He is breathing hard now. He looks past me, scanning the street. He says, "You need to leave." I say, "David, if you do not talk to me, I am going to print what I have. And when people start asking questions, Harrow is going to throw you under the bus to save himself. You know that." He closes his eyes. He exhales slowly. Then he says, "Come inside." I follow him in. The house is small and cluttered. Mail stacked on the kitchen table. A TV on low volume in the living room. He does not offer me a seat. He says, "I did not know what I was doing at first. Harrow told me he needed a favor. He said there were some files that needed to be stored off-site for security reasons. He said it was temporary. He said it was for the case. I ask why he believed him. He says, because I trusted him, and because he made it clear that if I did not help, there would be consequences. I ask, what kind of consequences? He says, he knew things about me, personal things. He said if I did not cooperate, those things would come out. So I helped him. I logged the files as duplicates. I helped him get the lease under Everett's name. I kept my mouth shut. I ask what was in the photo. He looks at me. His eyes are red. He says, it showed Harrow. It showed him standing next to Olivia's car at the trailhead. The timestamp was 12:38. 4 minutes before her phone went dark. The room feels very still. I say, Harrow was there. Falk nods. He says, he was there. And if that photo had stayed in the file, he would have had to explain why. So he buried it. He buried everything that connected him to that night. I ask if Harrow killed her. Falk says, I do not know. I swear I do not know. But I know he was there. And I know he lied about it. And I have been carrying that for 6 years. I ask where the photo is now. He says, it is back in evidence, in the box Derek Pryor turned in. But it will not stay there long. Harrow is moving it. He is going to destroy it. He told me yesterday. He said the case is being closed. He said the box is being reclassified as unrelated materials and scheduled for disposal. I ask, when? He says, tomorrow. I feel the urgency tighten around me like a fist. I say, I need that photo. He says, I cannot get it. I do not have access anymore. Harrow moved it to a secure locker. Only he has the key. I ask where the locker is. He says, evidence room, basement level. But you will never get in there. You will need clearance. You will need a reason. And even if you get in, Harrow will know. I say, let me worry about that. He looks at me like I am insane. I leave. Outside, the air is cold and damp. The rain has started again, light and steady. I get in my car. I sit in the dark and think. Harrow was at the trailhead. The photo proves it. If I can get that photo, I can break this open. But I have less than 24 hours. I need help. I need someone inside the department who will move faster than Harrow can cover his tracks. I think about Angela, the woman who called me when I first reached out to Harrow. She said she was calling on behalf of the department, but she did not give a last name, and her tone was careful, controlled. I wonder if she knows. I pull up the department directory online. I search for Angela. There are two. Angela Ruiz, dispatch supervisor. Angela Voss, internal affairs. Internal affairs. I call the main line. I ask for Angela Voss. I am transferred. She answers on the second ring. Her voice is calm, professional. I introduce myself. I say I am working on a story about the Olivia Hendricks case, and I believe there is evidence of misconduct related to the investigation. I say I have a witness who can confirm that files were deliberately hidden and that a key piece of evidence is about to be destroyed. There is a long silence. Then she says, I am listening. I tell her everything. The storage unit, the stolen identity, David Falk's confession, the surveillance photo showing Harrow at the trailhead, the plan to dispose of the evidence tomorrow. When I finish, she is quiet for a moment. Then, she says, "If what you are saying is true, this is serious. But I need proof. I cannot act on accusations alone." I say, "The proof is in the evidence locker. Basement level. Secure storage. Harrow has the key. But if you move now, you can get to it before he destroys it." She says, "I will need to verify this. I will need to speak to Falk." I say, "He will talk, but you need to move fast." Harrow knows people are asking questions. He is cleaning up. She says, "I will handle it, but you need to stay out of this now. If you interfere, you will compromise the investigation." I say, "I understand." She hangs up. I sit there, staring at the phone. I do not know if she will move in time. I do not know if she believes me, but I know I have done everything I can from the outside. Now, I wait. The rain is heavier now. I drive back to the motel. I try to sleep, but I cannot. I keep thinking about Olivia Hendricks, about the last moments before her phone went dark, about Harrow standing next to her car, watching. I think about what happens next, if the photo is real, if it gets out, if Harrow goes down. And I think about all the other cases he worked, all the other files he had access to, all the other times he might have done this. I do not sleep. At 6 in the morning, my phone rings. It is Angela Voss. She says, "We have the photo. We have Falk's statement. We are bringing Harrow in for questioning this morning." I exhale. I say, "Thank you." She says, "You were right. The photo shows him at the trailhead. The timestamp matches. He has a lot of explaining to do." I ask if I can see the photo. She says, "Not yet. This is an active investigation now, but I will keep you updated." I thank her. I hang up. I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the wall. It is not over, but it is moving. And for the first time in days, I feel like the door is opening instead of closing. I get dressed. I drive to the diner where I met Diane Mallory. I order coffee. I wait. At 9, my phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. It says, "Harrow just lawyered up. He is not talking, but they are searching his house. Thought you should know." I do not know who sent it, but I am grateful. I finish my coffee. I drive to the station. There are more cars in the lot than usual. Unmarked sedans. A news van parked across the street. It is starting. I park. I get out. I walk to the front entrance. Inside, the lobby is tense. Officers moving quickly. Voices low. The desk officer recognizes me. She does not smile. She says, "You cannot be here right now." I say, "I am just waiting." She says, "For what?" I say, "The truth." She does not respond, but she does not make me leave. I sit down. I wait. An hour later, Angela Voss comes through the side door. She sees me. She walks over. She says, "We found more. At his house. Files, documents, photos. He kept everything. He has been involved in at least 3 other cases where evidence was mishandled or disappeared. This is bigger than Hendrix. I ask about Olivia. She says, we are still piecing it together, but the working theory is that Harrow knew her. They crossed paths through the legal system. She was a paralegal. She worked on cases that went through his department. At some point, he became fixated. He followed her. He approached her that night at the bar. He convinced her to meet him at the trailhead. We do not know exactly what happened after that, but her car was there. He was there. And she never came home. I ask if they have found her. Voss shakes her head. She says, not yet, but we are searching the area around the trailhead again, with new information, new technology. If she is there, we will find her. I nod. I do not say anything. Voss says, you did good work. This would not have happened without you pushing. I say, I just asked questions. She says, sometimes that is enough. She walks away. I sit there for a while longer. Then I leave. Outside, the rain has stopped. The sky is still grey, but there is a break in the clouds to the west. Light coming through. I get in my car. I drive. I think about Olivia Hendrix, about the life she did not get to finish, about the people who loved her and never got answers. And I think about Kenneth Harrow, about the years he spent walking free, about the cases he buried, about the power he had and how easily he used it. I think about how close this came to staying hidden forever. One auction, one box, one person willing to make a phone call. That is all it took. I drive out to the trailhead. The parking lot is empty. The trees are dark and dripping. There is tape across the entrance now. Crime scene markers in the dirt. I park. I get out. I stand at the edge of the lot and look into the woods. Somewhere in there, maybe, is the answer to what happened that night. Somewhere in there is Olivia. I stand there for a long time. Then I get back in the car. And I drive home. 3 days pass before Angela Voss calls me again. She says they found something. She says I should come to the station. I drive over. The news van is still there. 2 more have joined it. Reporters standing under umbrellas, waiting for a statement. I go in through the side entrance. Voss meets me in a conference room on the 2nd floor. There is a laptop open on the table. Files stacked next to it. A map of the trailhead area spread across the wall. She says, sit down. I sit. She says, we brought in a cadaver dog team yesterday. They searched a 3-mile radius around the trailhead. The dog alerted in 2 locations. Both were off the main trail. Both were areas that were not searched thoroughly 6 years ago. I wait. She says, we found remains, buried shallow, about 40 yards from the parking lot, wrapped in canvas. The medical examiner is working on identification now, but the preliminary assessment matches Olivia Hendrix. Height, age, dental records pending. I feel the weight of it settle in the room. I say, you found her. Voss nods. She says, we found her, and we found something else. She opens the laptop. She turns it toward me. On the screen is a scanned image of a handwritten note. The paper is water damaged and torn at the edges, but the writing is still legible. It says, "If you are reading this, I am already gone. I tried to get away. I tried to tell someone. He said he would help me. He said he was a cop. I believed him. I should not have. His name is Kenneth Harrow. He works for the department. He has been following me for weeks. I did not know until tonight. Please find my family. Please tell them I fought." The note is signed with Olivia's name. I stare at it. I do not know what to say. Voss says, "We found it in her jacket pocket. It was folded tight. She must have written it in the car, or just before. She knew something was wrong. She tried to leave evidence." I ask if Harrow has seen this. Voss says his lawyer has. They are not commenting, but it does not matter. Between this, the surveillance photo, and the forensic evidence at the burial site, we have enough to charge him. Murder 1. Evidence tampering. Abuse of authority. He is not getting out. I ask what happens now. She says, "Trial. It will take months, maybe longer. But we have him, and we are going back through every case he touched, every file he had access to. If he did this to anyone else, we will find it." I thank her. She says, "You should write your story. People need to know how close this came to disappearing forever." I say, "I will." I leave the station. I sit in my car and stare at the steering wheel. Olivia tried to leave evidence. She wrote it down. She folded it into her pocket. She fought. And it still took 6 years for anyone to find her. I think about all the ways this could have gone differently. If Derek Pryor had not bought that unit, if he had not called the police, if David Falk had not broken, if Angela Voss had not moved fast enough. How many cases disappear because no one asks the right question at the right time? I start the car. I drive. That night, I write. I write everything. The storage unit, the stolen identity, the bartender who was threatened, the surveillance photo, David Falk's confession, the note in Olivia's pocket. I write about Kenneth Harrow, about the power he had, about the lives he controlled, about the silence he built around himself. And I write about Olivia Hendricks, about the person she was, about the life she tried to protect, even at the end. I send the draft to my editor at midnight. She calls me an hour later. She says, "This is incredible. This is going to be big. When can we publish?" I say, "As soon as the charges are filed. I do not want to interfere with the case." She says, "Understood. But we are ready when you are." 2 days later, the charges are filed. The story goes live that afternoon. Within hours, it is everywhere. Local news picks it up. Then regional. Then national. My phone does not stop ringing. Producers, journalists, podcasters, everyone wants to talk. I do a handful of interviews. I keep them short. I keep the focus on Olivia, on the case, on the system that failed her. I do not talk about myself. A week later, I get a call from a woman named Susan Hendricks, Olivia's mother. She says she read the story. She says she wanted to thank me. I tell her I am sorry. I tell her I wish I could have found answers sooner. She says, "You found her. That is what matters. We can bring her home now. Her voice breaks. I do not know what to say. She says, I knew something was wrong 6 years ago. I knew she would not just leave. But no one listened. They said she probably ran away. They said she was an adult, she could go where she wanted. They stopped looking. I say, I am sorry. She says, do not be sorry. Just keep doing what you are doing. Keep asking questions, because if you had not, we would still be waiting. We talk for a few more minutes. Then she hangs up. I sit there holding the phone. That is the moment it becomes real. Not the story, not the clicks, not the interviews. This, a mother who finally knows what happened to her daughter. That is why I do this. I keep working. I follow up on the other cases Angela Voss mentioned. The ones Harrow touched. The ones where evidence disappeared or files were mishandled. There are 4 others, all missing persons, all women, all cases that went cold within months of being opened. One of them is still open. Her name is Rachel Kwan. She disappeared 8 years ago, last seen leaving a gym in the evening. Her car was found in the parking lot. Keys inside. Phone missing. No witnesses. The case file lists Harrow as the lead detective. I reach out to Rachel's family. Her sister Minna agrees to talk. We meet at a coffee shop downtown. Mina is in her 30s, dressed in business casual, laptop bag over her shoulder. She looks tired. She says, I have been waiting for someone to take this seriously. I ask what she means. She says, when Rachel disappeared, the police acted like it was routine. They asked a few questions. They searched the parking lot. They checked her phone records. But after 2 weeks, it felt like they stopped trying. Harrow was always polite, always professional, but he never seemed urgent. He never seemed like he actually wanted to find her. I ask if she ever suspected him. She says, not at the time. But looking back now, there were things that did not make sense. He kept asking about Rachel's personal life, her relationships, her habits. It felt invasive, and he would show up at our house unannounced. He said he was following up, but it felt like he was checking on us, making sure we were not pushing too hard. I ask if there was any physical evidence. She says, nothing useful. They found her gym bag in the car, her water bottle, her keys, but her phone was gone. They said it pinged a tower near the interstate that night, then went dark. They said she probably left town. They said she probably wanted to start over. I say, but you did not believe that. She shakes her head. She says Rachel would not leave without telling me. We were close. We talked every day. If she was planning something, I would have known. I ask if she has heard about the Hendricks case. She says, yes. That is why I agreed to meet you. Because if Harrow did that to Olivia, he could have done it to Rachel. I say, the department is reviewing his cases. If there is a connection, they will find it. She says, I hope so. Because I need to know. I need to know if my sister is out there somewhere, or if she is gone. I need to know if I should keep hoping or start grieving. Her voice is steady, but her hands are shaking. I tell her I will keep looking. I tell her I will keep asking questions. She thanks me. She leaves. I sit there with my coffee and think about how many families are in that same place, suspended between hope and grief, waiting for an answer that may never come. I pull up Rachel Kwan's case file. I compare it to Olivia's. The patterns are there. Same investigator, same procedural gaps, same evidence that goes nowhere. But there is one difference. Rachel's phone. Olivia's phone went dark at the trailhead, but Rachel's phone pinged the interstate tower before it disappeared. That means it was moving. That means someone had it. I call Angela Voss. I ask if they are looking into Rachel's case. She says, yes, it is on the list. But we are prioritizing cases where we have physical evidence. Rachel's case is harder. No body, no witnesses, just a missing phone and a lot of questions. I ask if they have pulled the phone records. She says, we have them, but they do not tell us much. The phone pinged the tower at 10:23 that night, then never pinged again. Either it was destroyed or it was taken somewhere without service. I ask where the tower is. She says, about 12 miles east of the gym, near the State Forest access road. I know that area. It is remote. Logging roads, campgrounds that close in the winter, trails that go deep into the woods. I ask if they have searched there. She says, not thoroughly, not 6 years ago. Harrow ran the case. He decided the phone data was not enough to justify a full search. He said it was too much area to cover, with no other leads. I say, he made that call. She says, yes, he did. I thank her. I hang up. I drive out to the state forest. It takes 40 minutes. The access road is gravel and pitted with potholes. There are no lights, no signs, just trees pressing in on both sides. I park at the first pullout I find. I get out. I walk. The air smells like wet earth and pine. The ground is soft under my boots. I follow the trail for a quarter mile, then stop. I do not know what I am looking for. I am not a forensic team. I am not a search crew. But I need to see this place. I need to understand why Harrow chose not to search it. I walk deeper. The trail splits. I take the left fork. It narrows. The trees close in. The light fades. I stop at a clearing. There is an old fire ring, charred logs, rusted beer cans scattered in the grass. And there, half buried in the dirt near the tree line, is a phone. I crouch down. I do not touch it. I pull out my own phone and take photos. The device is old. Cracked screen. Faded case. It has been here a long time. I call Angela Voss. I tell her where I am. I tell her what I found. She says, do not touch it. We are sending a team. I wait. An hour later, 2 deputies arrive with evidence bags and a camera. They document the phone. They bag it. They search the surrounding area. One of them finds something else. A small leather wallet, buried under leaves about 10 feet from the phone. Inside is a gym membership card. The name on it is Rachel Kwan. The deputy looks at me. He says, how did you know to come here? I say, I did not. I just followed the gaps. They finish the search. They tell me they are going to bring in a full team tomorrow. They tell me to go home. I do not go home. I go back to the motel. I sit at the desk and map everything. Olivia Hendricks, Rachel Kwan, both missing. Both cases handled by Harrow. Both cases went cold. Both bodies buried or hidden in remote areas Harrow decided were not worth searching. He did not just fail to investigate. He actively steered the investigations away from the truth. Because he knew where the bodies were. Because he put them there. I think about the other two cases Voss mentioned. I pull their files. The first is a woman named Tara Nichols. Disappeared 5 years ago. Last seen at a gas station on the edge of town. Her car was found abandoned on a rural road 3 days later. No witnesses. No evidence. Case went cold within weeks. Lead investigator, Kenneth Harrow. The second is a woman named Erin Poole. Disappeared 7 years ago. Last seen leaving work late at night. Her apartment was undisturbed. Her car was in the parking lot. No signs of struggle. No leads. Lead investigator, Kenneth Harrow. 4 women. 4 cases. All cold. All handled by the same man. I call Voss. I tell her about the phone, about the wallet, about the pattern. She says, we are already on it. We are pulling records for every missing person case Harrow worked in the last 10 years. We are cross-referencing locations. We are looking for burial sites. I ask how many cases. She says, 7, maybe more. We are still counting. I feel sick. I ask if she thinks they are all connected. She says, I do not know yet, but I think Harrow was using his position to target women. I think he was using the investigations to cover his tracks, and I think he has been doing it for a long time. I ask what happens now. She says, we search, we dig, we bring them home. I hang up. I sit in the dark and think about how many families are still waiting, still hoping, still grieving without answers. And I think about Kenneth Harrow, about the years he spent in uniform, the trust people gave him, the authority he abused. I think about how easy it was for him, how simple. Just bury the evidence, redirect the search, close the case. And no one questioned him, because he was the one asking the questions. The next day, I drive back to the state forest. There are more vehicles now, marked and unmarked. A mobile command unit parked at the trailhead. Search teams moving through the woods in grids. I stay at the perimeter. I watch. By mid-afternoon, they find something. A deputy waves over the team leader. They mark the spot. They start digging. I do not need to get closer to know what they found. I wait. An hour later, Voss walks over to me. Her face is grim. She says, we found remains. Female. Preliminary assessment suggests they have been here several years. We are bringing in the medical examiner. I ask if it is Rachel. She says, we do not know yet, but the location matches the phone data, and the timeline fits. I nod. She says, we are expanding the search. We are bringing in ground-penetrating radar. If there are more, we will find them. I say, how many do you think there are? She says, I do not know, but Harrow is not talking. His lawyer is blocking everything. So we are doing this the hard way. I ask if I can stay. She says, "You can stay at the perimeter, but you need to let us work." I agree. I spend the rest of the day watching the search, watching the teams move through the trees, watching the evidence bags pile up in the command unit. By evening, they have marked 3 more sites. They have not started digging yet. They will wait for daylight. I drive back to the motel. I do not sleep. The next morning, I go back. The search continues. By noon, they have recovered remains from 2 more sites. Both female, both buried shallow, both wrapped in canvas, just like Olivia. The pattern is undeniable now. Voss holds a press conference that afternoon. She stands in front of the cameras and says the department is investigating a series of homicides connected to Kenneth Harrow. She says they have recovered multiple sets of remains. She says they are working to identify the victims and notify the families. She does not take questions. The story explodes. National outlets pick it up within hours. Kenneth Harrow is no longer just a corrupt cop. He is a serial killer. I get calls from producers asking me to go on camera. I decline most of them. I do one interview with a documentary team. I keep it focused on the investigation, on the victims, on the failures that allowed this to happen. I do not make it about me. Over the next 2 weeks, the search expands. They recover remains from 6 sites total, all in remote areas. All areas Harrow had access to. All areas he steered investigations away from. The medical examiner identifies 4 of the victims: Olivia Hendricks, Rachel Kwan, Tara Nichols, and Erin Poole. The other 2 are still being processed. Each identification brings a press conference. Each press conference brings more families forward, more questions, more pain. I attend all of them. I take notes. I listen. At the 4th press conference, Minna Kwan stands at the podium. She reads a statement. Her voice is steady, but her hands grip the paper tight. She says, "My sister Rachel was kind. She was strong. She deserved better than this. She deserved justice. I am grateful that we finally have answers. I am grateful that she can come home. But I am angry. I am angry that it took this long. I am angry that the person who was supposed to protect her was the one who killed her. I am angry that the system failed her. Failed all of them." She looks directly at the camera. She says, "If you are investigating a missing person case, do not stop. Do not trust one voice. Do not let anyone tell you it is not worth searching, because somewhere there is a family waiting, and they deserve the truth." She steps back. The room is silent. I write it all down. That night, I get a message from an unknown number. It says, "Thank you for not letting this go." I do not know who sent it, but I save it. Kenneth Harrow is arraigned 3 weeks later. He pleads not guilty. His lawyer argues that the evidence is circumstantial, that the remains could have been buried by anyone, that the surveillance photo does not prove murder. But the prosecution has more than the photo now. They have forensic evidence, DNA, soil samples, fiber matches. They have David Falk's testimony. They have the note in Olivia's pocket. They have enough. The trial is set for 6 months out. It will be long. It will be brutal. But it will happen. And the families will be there, I keep working. I follow up on the 2 unidentified victims. I work with the medical examiner's office to release details that might help identify them. Age, height, dental records, clothing fragments. One of them is identified within a week. Her name was Morgan Lassiter. She disappeared 9 years ago. She was reported missing by her roommate. The case was handled by Harrow. It was closed after 3 months. No leads. Her family had moved out of state. They thought she had run away. They thought she was alive somewhere, starting over. They were wrong. The second victim is still unidentified, but the search continues. I visit the state forest one more time. The search teams are gone now. The sites are marked with flags and tape. The ground is raw and disturbed. I stand at the edge of the clearing and look into the trees. I think about the women who were buried here, about the lives they did not get to finish, about the people who loved them and never stopped looking. I think about how close this came to staying hidden. One auction, one phone call, one question asked at the right time. That is all it took to crack it open. But it should not have taken that. It should not have required luck. It should not have required someone outside the system to push. The system should have worked. I stand there for a long time. Then I leave. I drive back to town. I stop at the diner. I order coffee. I sit in the corner booth and open my laptop. I start writing the next piece. Not about Harrow. Not about the case. About the system. About the structures that allowed this to happen. About the oversight that did not exist. About the culture that protected one man for years while families waited for answers. I write until the diner closes. Then I go back to the motel and keep writing. This is not over. The trial is coming. More victims may be identified. More families may come forward. But the story is bigger than one man now. It is about accountability. It is about the cost of silence. And I am going to keep telling it. 2 months before the trial, I get a call from a lawyer I have never heard of. His name is Raymond Birch. He says he represents the families of 4 of the victims. He says they want to meet with me. We meet at his office downtown. It is a small practice. 2 rooms. Filing cabinets stacked against the walls. Coffee mugs on every surface. Birch is in his 50s. Grey suit. Wire-rimmed glasses. He shakes my hand and leads me into a conference room. 4 people are waiting. Minna Kwan, Susan Hendricks, a man I do not recognize, a woman in her 40s wearing a hospital badge on a lanyard. Birch introduces them. The man is Carl Nichols, Tara's father. The woman is Beth Poole, Erin's sister. They all look at me with the same expression, exhausted, determined. Susan Hendricks speaks first. She says, "We wanted to thank you for everything you did, for not letting this go." I say, "I just asked questions." She says, "You did more than that. You gave us answers. You gave us our daughters back. And now we want to make sure this never happens again." Birch leans forward. He says, "We are filing a civil suit against the department. Wrongful death, negligence, failure to supervise. We are arguing that the department knew or should have known that Harrow was mishandling cases and that their failure to act allowed him to continue killing." I ask, if they have evidence of that. He says, we are building it. We have internal emails, performance reviews, complaints that were filed and ignored. We have a pattern of behavior that was documented but never addressed. Mina says Harrow was sloppy. He left gaps. But no one looked closely enough to see them, and when people did raise concerns, they were told to drop it. I ask who raised concerns. She says other officers, civilians. At least 3 families filed complaints about how their cases were handled. All of them were dismissed as grief or frustration. None of them were investigated. I ask if she can get me copies of those complaints. Birch says we can, but we need something from you first. I wait. He says, we need you to testify at the civil trial. You have investigated this case more thoroughly than almost anyone. You have sources. You have documentation. You have credibility. If you testify, it strengthens our case. I think about it. I think about what it means to step from observer to participant, to cross that line. But I also think about the families sitting across from me, about the years they waited, about the system that failed them. I say, I will testify. Susan Hendricks exhales. She says, thank you. We talk for another hour. They tell me about their daughters, about who they were, about the lives they had before Harrow took them. Susan tells me Olivia wanted to be a lawyer. She was saving money for law school. She was careful. She was smart. She would never have gotten into a car with a stranger, but she would have trusted a cop. Mina tells me Rachel was training for a marathon. She ran every day. She was strong. She was independent. She did not take risks. But if someone in authority told her there was a problem, she would have stopped to help. Carl tells me Tara loved photography. She carried a camera everywhere. She was documenting the town for a project. She was curious. She was fearless. She talked to everyone. And that made her vulnerable. Beth tells me Erin worked night shifts as a nurse. She was used to being alone. She was used to long hours. She was tired that night. She probably did not think twice when someone in uniform approached her in the parking lot. They were not reckless. They were not naive. They were just living their lives. And Harrow used their trust against them. I write it all down. I tell them their stories matter. I tell them I will make sure people understand who their daughters were. They thank me. We leave. Outside, the sky is grey and heavy. It feels like it might rain again. I sit in my car and stare at my notes. I think about the weight of what I just agreed to. Testifying means exposure. It means scrutiny. It means my work will be picked apart by defense lawyers looking for any crack. But it also means the families will have a voice. And that matters more. I drive back to the motel. I start organizing everything I have, every document, every interview, every timeline. I build a case file that matches what the prosecution is building. I make sure there are no gaps. I work through the night. The next morning, I get a call from Angela Voss. She says they have identified the last victim. Her name was Simone Baxter. She disappeared 10 years ago. She was a college student. She was last seen walking home from a campus library. Her case was never officially filed as a missing person. Her family assumed she had dropped out and left town. They did not push. Harrow was not the lead investigator, but he was the responding officer when her roommate called to report her missing. He took the report. He told the roommate that college students leave all the time. He said not to worry. He said she would turn up. She never did. And the report was never filed. Voss says, "We only found the paperwork because we went through Harrow's personal files. He kept a copy. He never turned it in. He buried it." I ask if the family knows. She says, "We are notifying them today." I thank her. I hang up. 7 victims. 7 women. 10 years. And the system missed it. Every single time. I add Simone Baxter to my file. I reach out to her family. They agree to talk. Her mother, Linda, meets me at a park near her house. She is in her 60s. She moves slowly. She sits on a bench and stares at the ground. She says, "I thought she just left. I thought she did not want to talk to me anymore. We had fought before she disappeared. Stupid things. School. Money. I thought she needed space. So I gave it to her." Her voice cracks. She says, "I should have pushed. I should have filed a report myself. But the officer said not to worry. He said she would come back when she was ready. I trusted him." I say, "It is not your fault." She says, "I know, but it feels like it is." We sit in silence for a while. Then she says, "I want people to know her name. I want people to know she mattered." I say, "I will make sure they do." She thanks me. She walks away slowly, hands in her pockets, shoulders hunched against the cold. I sit there for a long time. Then I go back to the motel. I write Simone's story. I write about the report that was never filed, about the mother who trusted the system and lost her daughter because of it. I send it to my editor. She calls me an hour later. She says, "This is devastating. When can we run it?" I say, "Now. Run it now." The story goes live that evening. It spreads fast. By morning, it is everywhere. The department issues a statement. They say they are conducting a full internal review. They say they are committed to transparency and accountability. They say they are working with the victims' families to provide support. It rings hollow. 3 days later, the chief of police resigns. He does not admit fault. He says he is stepping down to allow new leadership to guide the department through this difficult time. The deputy chief is placed on administrative leave. 2 captains are reassigned. An independent oversight board is announced. It is a start, but it is not enough. The families know it. The public knows it. I know it. Because the problem is not just one man. It is the culture that protected him, the systems that allowed him to operate unchecked, the silence that surrounded every warning sign. I keep digging. I find more complaints, more missed opportunities, more moments when someone could have stopped him. There is a report from 8 years ago. A woman named Jennifer Hollis filed a complaint against Harrow. She said he pulled her over for a broken taillight. She said he asked her invasive questions. She said he followed her home. She said she felt unsafe. The complaint was reviewed by a supervisor. The supervisor interviewed Harrow. Harrow said the woman was mistaken. He said he never followed her. He said she was overreacting. The complaint was dismissed. No further action taken. Jennifer Hollis moved out of state 6 months later. She is still alive. I call her. She agrees to talk. She says, I knew something was wrong with him. The way he looked at me, the way he asked about my schedule, my job, whether I lived alone. It was not normal. It was predatory. I ask why she did not push the complaint further. She says, because no one believed me. They made me feel like I was paranoid, like I was wasting their time. So I dropped it. And then I left town, because I did not feel safe. I ask if she knew about the victims. She says, not until the news broke, and when I saw his face, I felt sick, because I knew he was dangerous, and I tried to warn them, and they did nothing. I ask if she would be willing to testify at the civil trial. She says, yes, absolutely, because if I had been taken seriously, some of those women might still be alive. I thank her. I add her statement to the file. There are others. A dispatcher who said Harrow made her uncomfortable. A patrol officer who said Harrow was too interested in certain cases. A records clerk who said Harrow accessed files he had no reason to access. All of them reported their concerns. None of them were taken seriously. The pattern is clear. The department knew, maybe not the full extent, maybe not the murders, but they knew he was a problem, and they chose to ignore it. I write it all down. I document every warning, every complaint, every moment when someone could have intervened. I send it to Raymond Birch. He calls me the next day. He says, this is exactly what we need. This proves negligence. This proves they had knowledge and failed to act. This is the case. I say, good. Use it. He says, we will. And we are going to make sure they pay. The civil trial is scheduled 6 weeks after the criminal trial. Both will be brutal. Both will be public. Both will force the department to answer for what they allowed to happen. I prepare for both. I spend hours with the prosecution team. I walk them through my investigation. I show them my sources. I verify every claim. I make sure there are no holes. The lead prosecutor is a woman named Helena Vance. She is sharp, focused. She does not waste time. She says, the defense is going to argue that you are biased, that you have a vendetta against the department, that you are using this case to build your career. I say, let them. The evidence speaks for itself. She says, it does, but you need to be prepared. They are going to come at you hard. I say, I have been doing this long enough. I know how it works. She nods. She says, good, because we need you steady. We need you credible. I say, I will be. We go over the testimony again and again until it is airtight. The criminal trial starts on a Monday in October. The courthouse is packed. Reporters line the steps. Cameras everywhere. Security is tight. I sit in the gallery. I watch. The prosecution opens strong. They lay out the timeline, the victims, the evidence, the surveillance photo, the note in Olivia's pocket, the forensic matches. The defense argues that the evidence is circumstantial, that Harrow was a dedicated officer, that he is being scapegoated. that the real killer is still out there. It does not land. The jury does not buy it. The trial lasts 3 weeks. Witness after witness. Expert after expert. The families sit in the front row every day. They do not miss a session. I testify on day 12. The prosecution asks me to walk through my investigation, to explain how I found the storage unit, how I connected the cases, how I identified the patterns. I keep my answers clear, factual. I do not editorialize. I let the evidence speak. The defense cross-examines me for 2 hours. They ask about my sources, my methods, my motivations. They try to paint me as a conspiracy theorist, as someone chasing headlines. I stay calm. I answer every question. I do not take the bait. When I step down, Helena Vance gives me a small nod. I did what I needed to do. The trial concludes a week later. The jury deliberates for 6 hours. They come back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. 7 counts of first-degree murder, evidence tampering, abuse of authority. The courtroom erupts. The families are crying, holding each other. Some of them are shouting. The judge calls for order. Kenneth Harrow does not react. He sits stone-faced. His lawyer whispers to him. He does not respond. He is sentenced 3 days later. Life without parole. 7 consecutive sentences. He will die in prison. The families hold a press conference outside the courthouse. Minakwan speaks. She says, "This is not closure. This is accountability. Our sisters, our daughters, they deserved better. They deserved justice. And today, they got it." Susan Hendricks says, "We will never stop fighting. We will never stop asking questions, because there are other families out there waiting for answers. And they deserve the same thing we got. They deserve the truth." The press conference ends. The families leave together. I watch them walk away. I do not follow. I stand on the steps and watch the crowd disperse. It is not over. The civil trial is still coming. The department will still have to answer. But today, this part is finished. I walk back to my car. I sit in the driver's seat and close my eyes. I think about Olivia, about Rachel, about Tara and Erin, and Morgan and Simone, about the lives they did not get to live. I think about the note in Olivia's pocket, the words she wrote in the last moments before she died. "Please find my family. Please tell them I fought. We found them. We told them." And she did fight. I start the car. I drive. The civil trial begins 6 weeks later. It is smaller, less media, but no less important. Raymond Burge and his team lay out their case. They present the complaints, the internal emails, the performance reviews that flagged Harrow's behavior and were ignored, the testimony from Jennifer Hollis, from the dispatcher, from the patrol officer. They argued that the department created an environment where Harrow could operate unchecked, that they ignored warning signs, that they prioritized reputation over accountability. The defense argues that hindsight is not negligence, that the complaints were minor, that no one could have predicted Harrow would become a killer. The jury does not agree. After 4 weeks of testimony, they find in favor of the families. The department is ordered to pay damages, millions, more than they can afford. But the money is not the point. The point is the message. The point is accountability. The department is forced to implement reforms, mandatory oversight, independent reviews of cold cases, a whistleblower hotline, training on recognizing predatory behavior. It is not perfect, but it is something. The families walk out of the courthouse together. They do not celebrate. They do not smile. They just hold each other. I watch from a distance. I do not approach. This moment is theirs. I leave. I drive back to the motel. I pack my things. I have been here for months. It is time to go. But before I leave, I drive out to the state forest one more time. The search sites are gone now. The ground has been filled in. Grass is starting to grow. There are small markers where the remains were found. Simple plaques with names and dates. I walk the trail. I stop at each marker. I read the names. Olivia Hendricks, Rachel Kwan, Tara Nichols, Erin Poole, Morgan Lassiter, Simone Baxter, and one more, the seventh victim, the one whose name I have not written yet. Her name was Claire Donovan. She was identified 2 weeks after the trial ended. She disappeared 11 years ago. She was a waitress. She was last seen leaving work. Her case was never officially opened. Harrow took the initial report and buried it. Her family thought she had moved away. They thought she had started over somewhere else. They did not know she had been here all along. I stand at her marker for a long time. Then I leave. I drive out of town. I do not look back. I drive for hours. No destination. Just distance. The case is over. The trials are over. The families have their answers. Kenneth Harrow will never walk free again. But I cannot shake the feeling that something is still unfinished. It is not the case itself. It is the system, the culture, the silence that protected Harrow for so long. I think about the complaints that were dismissed, the concerns that were ignored, the women who tried to warn people and were told they were overreacting. I think about how many times this could have been stopped. How many moments someone could have intervened, and how many people chose not to. That is the story that still needs to be told. I stop at a rest area just past the state line. I sit at a picnic table and open my laptop. I start writing. Not about Harrow, not about the murders, about the system that enabled him, about the structures that failed, about the cost of silence. I write about Jennifer Hollis, who filed a complaint and was dismissed, about the dispatcher who said Harrow made her uncomfortable and was told to keep it to herself, about the patrol officer who noticed Harrow accessing files he should not have and was told it was none of his business. I write about the supervisors who reviewed complaints and did nothing, about the internal culture that prioritized loyalty over accountability, about the unwritten rule that you do not question another officer, even when something feels wrong. I write about the families who trusted the system and were failed by it, who believed that the people in uniform were there to protect them, who learned too late that sometimes the danger is wearing a badge. I write until the sun sets. Then I keep writing. By the time I stop, it is past midnight. My hands are cramping. My eyes are burning. But the piece is finished. I read it through once. Then I send it to my editor. She calls me 20 minutes later. She says, "This is powerful. This is the piece people need to read. When do you want to publish?" I say, "Now. Do not wait." She says, "We will run it tomorrow morning." The piece goes live at 6 a.m. By noon, it is everywhere. The response is immediate. Some people say I am right, that the system needs to change, that accountability matters. Others say I am attacking law enforcement, that I am using tragedy to push an agenda, that I do not understand how hard the job is. I expected both reactions. I do not engage with either. I let the piece speak for itself. 3 days later, I get a call from a producer at a major streaming platform. She says they want to do a documentary series about the case. 6 episodes, full access to the families, interviews with investigators, archival footage, courtroom recordings. She says they want me to be a consulting producer, to help shape the narrative, to make sure the story is told right. I ask what kind of timeline they are looking at. She says, "We want to move fast. We want to release it while people are still paying attention, while the conversation is still happening." I say, "I will think about it." She says, "Please do. We think this could be important. We think it could change things." I hang up. I sit with it for a few days. I think about what it would mean to be involved in a project like that, to spend months or years revisiting this case, to keep talking about Harrow, to keep living in that darkness. But I also think about the reach, about the number of people who would see it, about the conversations it could start. I call the families. I ask what they think. Susan Hendricks says, if it is done right, it could help. It could make sure people remember. It could make sure this does not happen again. Mina Kwan says, "I trust you. If you are involved, I know it will be respectful. I know it will honor them." Carl Nichols says, "Do it. Tell the whole story. Do not let them sanitize it. Do not let them make it entertainment." Beth Poole says, "Just make sure people understand who they were, not just victims, people." I call the producer back. I say yes, but I have conditions. I say, the families have final approval on anything related to their daughters. No sensationalism, no dramatization, no recreations of the murders. This is a documentary, not a crime thriller. She agrees. We start production a month later. It is hard, harder than I expected. I spend hours in editing rooms watching footage of the crime scenes, listening to 911 calls, reading autopsy reports. I spend hours with the families, recording interviews, listening to them talk about their daughters, about the years they waited, about the moment they got the call that remains had been found. I spend hours in the archives, pulling old news footage, reviewing press conferences, watching Harrow stand in front of cameras and lie about cases he was actively burying. The hardest part is the courtroom footage, watching Harrow sit there, stone-faced, No remorse, no emotion, just cold calculation. And watching the families, watching them hear the details of how their daughters died, watching them hold each other, watching them cry. It takes 8 months to finish. The series is 6 episodes. Each one focuses on a different aspect of the case. Episode 1 is about Olivia, about her disappearance, about the initial investigation, about the moment Derek Pryor opened that storage unit. Episode 2 is about the other victims, about their lives, about the patterns that connected them, about how Harrow targeted them. Episode 3 is about the investigation, about the evidence, about the search, about the moment they found the first burial site. Episode 4 is about the trial, about the prosecution's case, about the defense's arguments, about the verdict. Episode 5 is about the system, about the complaints that were ignored, about the culture that protected Harrow, about the reforms that came too late. Episode 6 is about the families, about their fight for justice, about their grief, about what comes next. The series premieres on a Tuesday in March, exactly 2 years after Derek Pryor bought that storage unit. The response is overwhelming. Millions of people watch it in the first week. It trends on social media. It sparks conversations about police accountability, about missing person cases, about how to recognize predatory behavior. Some police departments announce new oversight measures. Some cities create independent review boards. Some states pass laws requiring regular audits of cold cases. It is not enough. It is never enough. But it is something. The families do interviews. They talk about the series, about the impact, about what they hope people take away from it. Susan Hendricks says, "I hope people understand that this was preventable, that if someone had listened, if someone had acted, our daughters might still be here." Minakwan says, "I hope people understand that victims are not statistics. They are people. They have families. They have lives that mattered." Carl Nichols says, "I hope people understand that accountability is not optional, that the badge does not put you above the law, that trust has to be earned." Beth Poole says, "I hope people understand that you have to keep asking questions, that you cannot accept easy answers, that sometimes the truth is hidden by the people who are supposed to be finding it." I do not do many interviews. I let the families be the voice. I let the series speak for itself. But I do one, a long-form podcast interview, 2 hours, no edits. The host asks me what I learned from this case. I say, I learned that the truth does not always surface on its own. Sometimes it needs to be pulled up. Sometimes it needs someone willing to dig. And sometimes the people in power are the ones standing on top of the grave, making sure no one looks down. She asks me what I want people to take away. I say, I want them to ask questions. I want them to push back when something does not make sense. I want them to trust their instincts, and I want them to understand that silence protects the wrong people. She asks me if I think the system can change. I say, I do not know, but I know it has to, because right now there are families waiting for answers. There are cases that have gone cold because someone decided they were not worth pursuing. There are victims who have been erased because it was easier than doing the work. She asks me what I am working on next. I say, I do not know yet, but I will keep looking. I will keep asking, because that is the work. The interview ends. I walk out of the studio and into the cold air. I think about the last 2 years, about everything that has happened, about the weight of it. I think about the families, about the strength it took for them to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep demanding justice. I think about the victims, about the lives they should have had, about the futures that were stolen from them. And I think about the responsibility I have now to keep telling these stories, to keep asking the hard questions, to keep pushing against the silence. I get in my car. I drive. I do not have a destination yet, but I know I will find one. Because there is always another case, always another family waiting, always another story that needs to be told. A month later, I get a message from someone I do not know. They say they have information about a case, a missing woman, a small town, a detective who closed the case too quickly. They say, I think you should look into this. I read the message twice. Then I start researching. The case is 3 years old. A woman named Laura Macklin disappeared after leaving work one evening. Her car was found at a park, keys inside, phone missing, no witnesses. The case went cold within 6 weeks. The lead detective retired a year later. I pull up his name. I start searching. There are gaps, small ones, but they are there. I think about Harrow, about how it started, about the patterns I did not see until I looked closely. I think about how easy it would be to ignore this, to say I have done enough, to walk away. But I do not. I start making calls. I start pulling records. I start building a timeline. Because that is the work. And the work does not stop. 3 weeks later, I am sitting in a diner in a town I have never been to before. Across from me is Laura Macklin's sister. Her name is Amy. She is younger than I expected, mid-20s. She has dark circles under her eyes. She says, no one will listen. They say the case is closed. They say there are no leads. They say Laura probably left on her own. I say, do you believe that? She says, no. Laura would not leave. She had a daughter. She had a job. She had a life. She would not just walk away. I ask about the detective. She says, he was nice at first. He asked all the right questions. But after a few weeks, he stopped calling. He stopped following up. And when I pushed, he got defensive. He said I needed to accept that sometimes people just disappear. He said I was making it harder on myself by holding on. I write that down. I ask if there is anyone else I should talk to. She gives me 3 names: co-workers, friends, people who knew Laura, people who have things to say but no one to say them to. I spend the next week interviewing them, building a picture, finding the gaps. And I find them. Small things, inconsistencies, details that do not add up. A co-worker says Laura was worried about someone following her. She mentioned it twice in the week before she disappeared. She said she kept seeing the same car, a dark sedan. She said she thought it might be nothing, but it made her nervous. The police report does not mention it. A friend says Laura called her the night she disappeared. She said she was on her way home. She said she was tired. She said she would call her back tomorrow. But she sounded distracted, like someone was with her. The police report does not mention the call. A neighbor says Laura's car was parked at the park for 2 days before anyone reported it. She said she saw it there. She said she thought it was strange. She said she called the non-emergency line, but no one followed up until Laura's sister filed a missing person report. The police report does not mention the neighbor's call. The gaps are there, small, but consistent. I start pulling the detective's other cases. I start looking for patterns. And I find them. 4 missing person cases in 5 years. All women. All closed within weeks. All with similar explanations. They left on their own. They wanted a fresh start. No evidence of foul play. None of them have been found. I sit with that information. I think about what it means. I think about Harrow, about how long he operated, about how many people missed the signs. I think about the responsibility I have now, to not miss them this time. I call Amy. I tell her what I found. She says, "What do we do?" I say, "We keep asking questions. We keep pushing. We make noise until someone listens." She says, "Will it work?" I say, "I do not know, but it is all we have." We meet with a lawyer. We meet with a local journalist. We start building pressure. It takes time, weeks, then months. But slowly, things start to move. The police department agrees to reopen the case. They assign a new detective. They start reviewing the original investigation. The retired detective is brought in for questioning. He denies any wrongdoing. He says he followed procedure. He says the cases were handled 6 months later. I am back in the town where it all started, where Derek Pryor bought that storage unit, where Olivia Hendricks disappeared, where Kenneth Harrow buried his secrets. I am here for a memorial. The families have organized it, a permanent marker at the trailhead, 7 names, 7 lives, 7 women who deserve better. The ceremony is small, just the families, a few local officials, some members of the community who have followed the case, a handful of reporters keeping a respectful distance. I stand at the back. I am not here to work. I am here to witness, to remember. Susan Hendricks speaks first. She stands in front of the stone marker and reads her daughter's name aloud. Olivia Marie Hendricks. She talks about who Olivia was, about her dreams, about her kindness, about the hole her absence left. She says, "This is not just a memorial for Olivia. This is a memorial for all of them, for every woman who is taken, for every family who waited, for every voice that was silenced." She says, "We put this here so no one forgets, so people who walk this trail know what happened, so they understand the cost of looking away." Mina Kwan speaks next. She talks about Rachel, about her strength, about her dedication, about the marathon she never got to run. She says, "My sister believed in justice. She believed in doing the right thing, and I know she would want us to keep fighting, to keep asking questions, to keep demanding accountability." One by one, the other families speak. They tell stories. They share memories. They cry. They hold each other. When they finish, there is a moment of silence. The wind moves through the trees. The sound is soft, almost like breathing. Then people start to leave. Slowly, quietly. I stay. I walk up to the marker. I read the names again. All 7. I think about the paths that led them here. About the moments when their lives intersected with Kenneth Harrow. About the choices that were made. The warnings that were ignored. I think about how different things could have been. If someone had listened. If someone had acted. If the system had worked the way it was supposed to. But it did not. And 7 women died because of it. I stand there for a long time. Then I turn and walk back to my car. Amy Macklin is waiting for me in the parking lot. She drove up for the ceremony. She said she needed to be here. She needed to see it. She says, "Do you think we will get the same thing?" For Laura. I say, "I do not know. But we will keep pushing until we do." She nods. She looks tired. The kind of tired that comes from months of fighting, months of waiting, months of not knowing. She says, "I do not know how you do this, how you keep going, how you do not let it destroy you." I say, "Some days I do not know either, but I think about the families. I think about what they have lost, and I think about what happens if I stop, if no one keeps asking, if no one keeps looking." She says, "Thank you for not stopping." I do not know what to say to that, so I just nod. She gets in her car and drives away. I sit in mine for a while. I think about Laura, about the case that is still open, about the detective who is still under investigation, about the answers that are still out there somewhere. I think about the work, about how it never really ends, about how there is always another case, always another family, always another truth buried under silence. I start the car. I drive. I do not know where I am going yet, but I know I will find it, because that is what I do. I look for the gaps. I ask the questions no one else wants to ask. I pull at the threads until something unravels. And I do not stop until I find the truth. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the detective working Laura Macklin's case. His name is Detective Roy Sims. He is older, close to retirement, but he is thorough. He listens. He says, "We found something. Laura's phone. It was in a storage locker across town, registered under a false name. But the lease was paid with a credit card that traces back to the retired detective." I feel my pulse quicken. I say, "What was on it?" He says, "Texts, photos, evidence that he was in contact with Laura before she disappeared, evidence that he lied about the timeline, evidence that he knew more than he said." I ask if it is enough to charge him. He says, "We are building the case, but yes, I think it is." I thank him. I hang up. I call Amy. I tell her. She does not say anything at first. Then she starts crying. Not sad crying. Relief, anger, exhaustion, all of it at once. She says, "We are going to find her. We are going to bring her home." I say, yes, we are. The case moves forward. The retired detective is arrested. He is charged with evidence tampering, obstruction, and eventually, after more evidence surfaces, with murder. They find Laura 3 months later, buried in a wooded area outside town, not far from where her car was found. The detective pleads guilty. He is sentenced to 30 years. He will likely die in prison. Amy stands at the sentencing. She reads a statement. She talks about Laura, about the life she had, about the daughter who will grow up without her mother, about the years her family spent not knowing. She says, "You stole her from us. You stole her future, and you tried to hide it. But we did not let you. We kept asking. We kept pushing. And now everyone knows what you did." She says, "I hope you live a long time. I hope you spend every day thinking about what you took from us." The detective does not look at her. He stares at the floor. The judge delivers the sentence. The courtroom clears. Outside, Amy finds me. She hugs me. She says, "Thank you for everything, for not giving up." I say, "You did not give up either." She says, "I could not. Not when I knew someone was finally listening." We stand there for a moment. Then she leaves. She has a long drive ahead of her. She has a family waiting. She has a daughter to raise. She has a life to rebuild. I watch her go. Then I get in my car. I sit in the silence. I think about the last 3 years, about everything that has happened, about the cases, about the families, about the cost of uncovering the truth. I think about the weight I carry now, the stories I hold, the responsibility to tell them right. And I think about what comes next. Because there is always a next. Always another case that needs attention. Always another family that needs someone to listen. I pull out my phone. I scroll through my messages. There are dozens. Tips, leads, stories. People reaching out because they have nowhere else to turn. I pick one. I start reading. A woman disappeared 4 years ago. Small town in the Midwest. Her case was closed within weeks. No body, no evidence, no explanation. Her brother says something was wrong with the investigation. He says the lead detective was too quick to move on. He says there are gaps. I think about those words. Gaps. The spaces where the truth hides. I message him back. I say, "Tell me everything." He does. I take notes. I start building a timeline. I start asking questions. Because that is the work. And the work does not stop. I drive out of town as the sun sets. The sky is bruised purple and orange. The road stretches out ahead of me, empty and quiet. I think about Olivia Hendricks one more time. About the note she left. About the fight she put up. About the years it took to find her. I think about all the others. The ones who have been found. The ones who are still missing. The ones whose stories have not been told yet. And I think about my role in this. Not a hero. Not a savior. Just someone willing to look. Someone willing to ask. Someone willing to sit with the discomfort of not knowing until the truth finally surfaces. I turn on the radio. Static crackles through the speakers. I find a station. Music plays low. I drive into the dark. And somewhere ahead, there is another case, another family, another truth waiting to be uncovered. I will find it, because that is what I do. That is the work, and the work never stops.